Coming up on the Broadway Shuffle, what JT Toppin's return means for Texas Tech and a huge portal announcement. That and much more next. Welcome to the Broadway Shuffle, a special portal edition. I am your host, Brennan Baxter, and unfortunately, my counterparts, Conrad, Zyler, and Clayton, could not be with me today, so we are riding solo on the Broadway Shuffle, but the JT Toppin news was too good not to discuss, so we're here to get into what that means for Texas Tech and their opportunity to win the Big 12 next season, as well as discuss some of the portal additions that you have now got now that the window's open, and Tyree Bryan from Santa Clara announced his commitment, and then some potential rumored guys that will be coming as well. And at the end, I'll get into Clayton Anderson's announcement as well. But if this is your first time to the Broadway Shuffle, thank you so much for checking out our show. Make sure to like this video and subscribe on YouTube or follow along on Spotify or Apple so you never miss an episode. Okay, JT Toppin. Big 12 Player of the Year, 18 points, 9 rebounds a game last year for the Red Raiders, and there were a lot of questions coming into the offseason. I know it's only been about 10 days since you've entered the offseason, but we are in the offseason. What does JT Toppin's future look like, and could he return to Texas Tech? And I think there were people on both sides of the aisle that thought he might be gone, and people that, were pretty confident that he could be returning. Well, he announced today, I'm back. JT Toppin returning to the Red Raiders in 2026. What does this mean for him and Texas Tech? I want to start with the rumored, I guess you could call it a contract. We don't even really know what NIL contracts look like yet, but rumored to be around $4 million for the NIL per Matt Norlander at CBS. Why is that number significant, and why did it maybe signify JT Toppin's return? Well, JT Toppin was graded potentially as being a top 16 potential lottery pick in the league going to the NBA, but with some question marks. And if you know anything or have followed the NBA draft, and I'll use a Texas Tech player, for example, Jarrett Culver from the 2019 team, 6th overall pick in the 2019 NBA draft. Jarrett Culver has not necessarily had the NBA career that we might have hoped he would have, but you never know in the NBA. It's not like the NFL where you are almost guaranteed first-round money. You're going to be playing right away, and you'll be in the league. NBA is a lot more volatile. You don't know what you're going to get, so there's a lot of risk with potentially declaring and officially entering the NBA draft. What Texas Tech did there is the 16th pick in last year's draft. That valued pick was $4 million. So Texas Tech, pretty much with the Matador Club and the powers that be, you might know their names. Maybe I don't know exactly if Womble or Campbell were involved in this, but I would assume so. Say, hey, Toppin, we're going to pay you a top 16 pick value to return to school. And that's brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant, because you essentially took what could be the risk of Toppin going to the league, leaving your team, losing the Big 12 Player of the Year, also potentially losing Darion Williams as he announced he's going to test NBA waters, enter the portal, and you get JT Toppin back at a price value that he probably was not going to get as a first-round pick in the NBA next year. So you are paying JT Toppin lottery pick money to return before the revenue share comes into agreement to be on your roster next year. That is a fantastic move, and kudos to the Texas Tech brass for making that happen. We've talked about JT Toppin a lot, obviously, and his rise from New Mexico to Lubbock and what he's been able to do to go from, relatively unknown going into his year at New Mexico to being Big 12 Player of the Year, and his progression under this coaching staff with Jeff Linder, with Grant McCasland. I think that Toppin's comfortable here. I don't think that JT Toppin, the Darion Williams thing, there was a lot more drama. There's been some reports coming out. It's been, he's going to test water. He's going to transfer. We've seen some things in the news about Darion. JT Toppin, it was like, hey, I think this dude's coming back. I think he loves Lubbock. He loves Grant. He loved the system, and he thrived. And for him, maybe it's just a comfort level, and we're going to take care of him. He's going to take care of us. And it's a great place for him to be where he can continue to evolve his game. And so when you're looking at JT Toppin and what this means for Texas Tech next season, you had the Clayton Anderson news that he's also returning. I don't really think there was ever a doubt, but in the NIL era, you have to kind of assume that every time you play your last game, your roster could be completely new the next season. That's just where college basketball and even college football is at these days. But with Clayton Anderson coming back, you're obviously returning one of the most prominent freshmen from the Big 12. He continued to rise, a huge piece to your team. We expect Clayton to develop into a star and be one of the best players in the Big 12. So you are now talking about one of the best, if not potentially the best 1-2 punch in the conference. There's a lot of moving parts still as the portal continues, but just on paper, getting Christian and Toppin back, Christian obviously will be a starter next season, I would assume. That's dangerous. And that's awesome. That immediately, even in a stacked Big 12 next year, puts you in the top 4 or 5, in my opinion. You have Houston, who's bringing in and returning a lot of talent. BYU is making crazy headlines in the NIL basketball space, obviously, as well. Rob Wright from Baylor is committing to BYU as well, too. So they're going to be stacked. Arizona is still going to be there. Obviously, Kansas, you expect to retool. So, and then Baylor and, company as well. So, Iowa State. So the Big 12 is not going anywhere. It's going to be a tough conference. And if you're Texas Tech and you're in a position where you're losing Chance, you're losing Kerwin, you're losing Elijah, that's a lot of 3-point production. That's a lot of offensive production. You needed to feel like we want to compete. We made an Elite Eight run. You were that close against the national champions. You had beaten the national running up champions and national runner up Final Four. What am I trying to say? You beat Houston, okay, during the regular season. So you were close. And JT Toppin was the reason you were close. So for Texas Tech, I think this is a no-brainer. $4 million, $10 million, $12 million, I don't care. Give JT Toppin the money to come play for your program next year and compete for a Big 12 championship, and you took care of that. Now, when it comes to JT and you're looking at his draft prospect and maybe why he stayed, I think there's some things that he can work on, and he'd probably admit so. JT Toppin did digress a little bit as a three-point shooter this year. He shot 34% at New Mexico. He was down to 32 this year. I did feel like watching just the eye test, not analytical approach here, but that he did get more comfortable. He hit some big threes against Florida. Obviously, in that game, did struggle from the free throw line, but hit a couple big threes in that game, though he struggled in the paint. And in the NBA, you need to be able to shoot threes. The 7-footers are shooting 35, 40% from three in the league now normally. It's like Dirk Nowitzki has been cloned times 32. It's just the way the NBA is. So if you have size, you have to be able to space the floor at all 5 positions in the NBA now. Toppin can continue to get better. I expect him to be a focal point around the 3-point line next season, more so than he was this year, and also improve the right hand. I think offensively, we did see in the tournament that when Arkansas and Florida were able to throw some size, he did rush his shot at times. He had a little bit of a harder time getting to his right hand, turning off of the shoulder with his right hand, and I think we'd like to see him improve that a little bit too, to become more of a dynamic scorer. He was still very effective, one of the best rebounders in the country. So he was able to get a lot of buckets and putbacks from that. But, just getting him in ISO, getting him more towards the elbow, 3-point line, pick and pop. There's a lot that I think Grant will expect him and be able to work with him to evolve his offensive game to become one of the more dynamic scorers in the conference as well. But you're returning a top player. I'd imagine JT Toppin will be preseason Wooden Award watch list, preseason All Big 12, preseason All American. He'll have all the accolades, and you will have national media attention because of his return. So this is great for your program, great for the Matador Club and the NIL. We've seen what Texas Tech is willing to do in the football, but to have that same commitment, to show that same commitment to your basketball program is key. And you just paid one of the best players in the conference. And there's a lot of conversation about NIL and the revenue sharing. And honestly, it's all confusing. But when you do get this taken care of while you're able to, huge. And for Texas Tech, this is a great win. For JT Toppin, it's a great win. I couldn't be more happy for our program and for JT. And I do think that now with Christian, Kevin Overton, you expect to be back unless something crazy changes. Federico Squared is coming back, and Fetty had a great tournament. We saw the success that he and Toppin were even able to have on the floor at the same time. This is exciting. This is a great day for Texas Tech basketball, and I couldn't be more stoked. In regards to briefly the Darion Williams situation with him entering the portal and leaving, you were hoping to have one of the two back. And, it would have been tough to lose both of those because Darion, such a great player. But, and I mean no disrespect to Darion by saying this, but you probably, if you had to pick one of the two, would want JT Toppin back. He's the Big 12 Player of the Year for a reason. And so this is a win for Texas Tech in that department too, because you could have easily had an offseason where you lost Chance and D5 and Toppin, potentially Christian, and you get Christian and Toppin back. Obviously, Chance had no choice. I mean, I'd love for them to somehow figure out a waiver to get his 9th year in college basketball. It seems like everyone else is doing it, but that's okay. We wish Chance the best. But for D5 to be gone, it looks like, but to retain Toppin, man, you take that. I would have signed up for that the moment we lost to Florida. I would have signed up for that in February if you had to give me an option. So best of luck to D5 as he enters the draft, and hope he's able to go and, have a great combine and potentially enter the league. But for Texas Tech, I think this is the best you could have hoped for, because the reality is you probably weren't going to get both back to start with. So we'll see what happens, but I'm super, super excited. Okay. I want to transition to other news. Tyree Bryan, Santa Clara. You've probably never heard of him, but you will be hearing a lot about him. This kid is honestly one of the better 3-and-D players in all of the portal. And that is even said so and confirmed by Evan Maya, who is a great basketball. If you want to check them out as well, feel free to go do that. But top 5 3-and-D portal, top 3-point specialist, defensive specialist, 10 points a game, 4.4 rebounds, best player on Santa Clara per Torvik as well. Had 35 points and 7 3-pointers in a game against Gonzaga, a game they won 103-99. So I'm not going to sit here and act like a massive expert. I did not watch much Santa Clara basketball. In fact, the last time I watched Santa Clara highlights, Steve Nash was their point guard, one of my idols. So it's been that long since I've really watched a Santa Clara game. But in the brief film that I've watched, this is awesome. This is a Grant McCaslin type guy. And what I mean by that is that Grant is a culture coach. We talk about this with Joey McGuire a lot too, but I think that with Grant McCaslin and what he's able to do and what he's looking to in building this program, he wants guys that fit the culture and his style. He's willing to adapt. He was a defensive coach coming to Tech. We saw how good our offense was. But a guy like Tyree Bryan, who can shoot the 3 well, space the floor, defend the wing, has good length, is a perfect fit for Texas Tech. And I talked about earlier the 1-2 punch of Clayton Anderson and JT Toppin. You don't necessarily need a top 5 shooting guard in the country or a top 5 small forward in the country. You need complement players. JT Toppin and Clayton Anderson are that good. I seriously think they will be the best duo in the conference next year. And that's saying a lot with how stacked this conference is. And I don't mean that because I'm a Texas Tech guy. I just think they're that good. So to get a guy like Tyree Bryan to fill a space is great. I would love to see, him in more of that. I don't want to say Chance McMillan role, because it's really going to be hard to replace Chance McMillan. But you are getting a guy that was if you can score 35 points in a college game and have 7 3-pointers, you're doing something right. And that was with Santa Clara. He's going to be playing with much better talent here in Lubbock. So I look forward to seeing that addition as well. And I think it's great for Texas Tech being aggressive, finding guys that you need a little more size, because Federico and Toppin, probably not going to start them in the front court. You probably will keep Toppin at the 5, but we'll see what other additions you bring in throughout the year. But I think this is great for Texas Tech, one of the best defense and 3-point specialists, again, in the portal, and just a great addition to your roster. So one other piece of information to get into before we get out of here. There is another rumor that you're in on player, 6'6" sophomore out of Washington State, Leon Watts. I have watched some of Washington State and Leon Watts. Rest in peace, Mike Leach. Wazoo became a good fan of their program back in the day. But he was the Big Sky Freshman of the Year at Washington State. Tape looks good on him. I think that, he has a similar profile to Darion Williams. I think based off the film that he's a little more athletic, probably not as polished as D5, but 13.7 points a game, 6.7 rebounds, and 4.4 assists. Also shot 42% from the 3-point line. He is an inside-out scorer. He can score in multiple ways, and they did use him kind of off that side pick and roll that we saw Toppin run very effective, Toppin and D5 run effectively, where they were able to get to their spots and get Toppin on the block. And get D5 on the block as well. And so I like Leon's ability. He can pick and pop some. He can kind of create off the dribble. Obviously, averaging 4.4 assists is great. I mean, this is anytime you have the opportunity to add a guy 14, roughly, a 14, 7, and 5 guy, if you were to round up, that's awesome. And I think at 6'6" as well, with, again, added length, added shooting, defensive guy, can score in multiple ways. This is what this roster needs next season to fill. If you look at Grant, just based off this year, you went 7, kind of 8 deep on the bench. So when you're looking at Christian, JT, Federico, Overton, Bryan, and then you got, some guys on the roster that could, we saw Horner and EY get some minutes, but you're still looking at a couple pieces. But I love the fact that we're pursuing guys that can shoot the 3 well and have length, because that is what is going to complement this roster well. I do think as we close that Christian he's more dynamic than Elijah Hawkins. Elijah was one of the best facilitators and assist to turnover ratio guards in the country. Are you going to replace that immediately? That might be tough, but you do want to add probably more of a pass first type point guard to this system as well. So I'd be curious to see where we go. There's been some rumored names we've talked about on the show, but keep an eye out. We'll be here to discuss that too. So, interesting time. The offseason in the transfer portal never ends. We are just 3-4 days removed from the national title game ending. And here we are, big news for Texas Tech basketball. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Again, if this is your first time, make sure to like this video and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We are usually here every Monday and Thursday, and there's 4 of us. I know you're looking at just me today, but I promise there's 3 other guys, and they're a lot more handsome than I am. So make sure to check out the show so you never miss an episode. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next time on the Broadway Shuffle. Wreck 'em.